The Fastnet Race, covering a distance of 610 nautical miles, is widely regarded as one of the world's most challenging ocean competitions. This race is held every 2 years and begins in Cowes, England, continues around the southernmost point of Ireland, the Fastnet Rock, and concludes in Plymouth, England. The time it takes to finish the race varies depending on the weather conditions. August 11, 1979, on a bright Saturday afternoon, the 28th Fastnet Race, organized by the Royal Ocean Racing Club, is about to begin. The fleets have been classified into distinct rating bands to facilitate more efficient administration. A yacht's rating is its effective sailing length, which considers engine weight, propeller drag, and sail area. A boat must be at least 28 feet long and no more than 85 feet long to be eligible for entry. There were 336 registrants for the event this year, but only 303 could participate. There's a massive spectator fleet waiting off the starting line in the Solent to wave goodbye to the magnificent Fastnet lineup of 303 yachts and 2,700 competing sailors and crew. Southwestern winds of 10 to 20 knots are forecast, making perfect race conditions on the water. This scene is as picture-perfect as one could wish for a representation of classic British boat racing. However, the sailors and crew had no idea that a big storm was brewing in the Atlantic 2,000 miles away when they set sail from the Isle of Wight's protected waters and headed west towards the Irish coast. They are about to encounter the force 11 gales and enormous waves. The worst-case scenario for sailors came true in less than 48 hours when a fierce force 10 storm struck the race, almost entirely unanticipated by forecasters. The fleet's 2,700 crew members endured 50 to 60 knot gusts and monstrous waves for nearly 24 hours, and challenging conditions caused several boats to sink or lose control. The crews that escaped to what they believed to be the protection of an inflatable life raft were shocked to find out that their floating shelters just crumbled beneath the force of the waves as they tried to protect themselves. The navies of at least 3 nations were engaged in a valiant effort to save them, along with lifeboats, rescue helicopters, and merchant ships. On August 17th, as the last boat crossed the finish line, 15 individuals had been killed, 24 crews had abandoned ship, 5 boats had sunk, 136 sailors had been rescued, and only 85 yachts had completed the race. Over 50 years of widespread interest in ocean racing, nothing nearly similar had ever happened. There has only ever been one death in the Fastnet Race's 55-year existence, which occurred 48 years ago. The short, swiftly moving, and ultimately deep depression below 980 millibars that blew into the Fastnet Sea area on the night of August 13th and 14th was the origin of the extreme winds, which had a steady average force of 10 or 48 to 55 knots and frequent powerful gusts of roughly 60 to 70 knots. The wind's intensity, which was blowing over open water for several hours, and the fact that it swung from south to the northwest in 12 hours caused wave motions to come from numerous directions at once, contributed directly to the severity of the resultant seas. The BBC shipping forecast warned about an impending storm at 15:05 on Monday, August 13th, and it was the first sign that a storm was on its way. The forecast called for a southwestern gale of force 8 within the next few hours. By the subsequent 19:05 broadcast, the storm strength had been increased to a force 8, developing strong gale, force 9 impending. A dynamic, well-defined cold front was visible in satellite images, and later charts showed that a trough followed it. It's vital to note that the trough caused a wind direction change of roughly 90 degrees. As the pressure climbed swiftly after the trough, the winds picked up significantly. This shift in the wind's direction was the single most significant factor causing difficulties for the boats. A yacht's crew could have a fighting chance if they ran beneath bare poles or dragged warps, but in this case, they had no such luck, and several yachts were repeatedly knocked over. On the evening of Monday, August 13th, several yachts reported issues with their rudders and steering gear, signaling the beginning of trouble for the Fastnet Race fleet. The fleet was currently dispersed over a distance of around 140 miles from Land's End to Fastnet Rock. At 22:15 on Monday, August 13th, in response to a distress call from a rudderless sailboat, the Baltimore lifeboat launched from her station to begin rescue operations. Numerous red flares were observed and mayday calls were received between midnight and 2 a.m. on Tuesday, August 14th, prompting the launch of 4 additional lifeboats to assist in the rescue effort. The rescue mission split into 2 parts after daylight arrived. The first on Tuesday, August 14th, involving saving people from 24 derelict yachts, and it was mostly finished by nightfall. Parallel to the first phase, the second lasted until 14:12 on Thursday, August 16th, when all competing ships were safely accounted for. When rescuing people 60 to 80 miles from land, helicopters working throughout the day with Nimrod planes were the most successful vehicles due to their speed. There was constant day and night activity from the lifeboats as they towed and escorted the damaged boats that had to withdraw from the race due to their condition back into the harbor. The tragedy's avoidability was a subject of much discussion after the incident. The weather forecasters were alleged to have made catastrophic errors, and it was said that the captains exhibited poor judgment by abandoning their ships in favor of lifeboats. The Royal Yachting Association, or RYA, and the Royal Ocean Racing Club, or RORC, launched an inquiry into the disastrous 1970 Fastnet Race to determine what went wrong. Everything from the reliability of weather reports to the effectiveness of safety equipment on boats to the training and strategies of crew members to the effectiveness of search and rescue operations were all part of the investigation. A thorough analysis of the facts reveals that none of those accusations was true. Disaster could only be avoided in one of 2 ways that evening, by choosing not to participate at all or being exceptionally lucky. This storm and its subsequent sea state could not have been predicted in time to significantly reduce the number of vessels that were harmed by it. The race officials had no valid reason to call off the event. The outcome would not have changed considerably regardless of the quality of radio transmission, the boat's quality, or the crew's maritime expertise. The inquiry came to the conclusion that the 1979 race demonstrated the sea's potential as a lethal foe, and that anyone who goes sailing for recreation must do so with the full awareness that they may run into extreme perils. Yachts should continue racing across the Fastnet route, but only if the lessons learned from this year's events are thoroughly internalized.